Hey, my name's Tammy Gomez, and I host the monthly virtual poetry reading series titled Recordando. And every month, there's a theme, remembering something or other. And this month, which is March of 2024, it's Recordando Mi Time Suck. However you feel you want to relate to that theme or not, it's up to you. I don't ever mandate that people um squeeze some, meaning out of that in, as relates to the work that they choose to present. But I guess I was feeling that certain things I did this week were a time suck, and that was annoying to me. So I guess that's why that rose to the top. I was in Austin for a few days early this week. I took my nephew down to get him acquainted with Austin on the, being on the ground, hiking and walking around, seeing some of the sights, some of the people, and some South by Southwest mayhem. It was good. It's good. But time suck happens anyway, even when things are going well. Like waiting, sitting on waiting in line for mass transit, and then you find out you booked the tickets wrong, so you shouldn't have been in that line anyway because there was no seat for you. That was the biggest time suck. Anyway, everything's all good. It's raining over here in our neck of the woods. So that's gonna make things even more lush and beautiful. And I'm hoping y'all are doing well wherever you are tonight. Is there anyone who's wanting to read something now? I don't want to be the first because I really don't have anything set up to read. But I welcome you, all of you who are joining tonight.
Okay. Hi. My name's Anita Sanchez. I would like to read, if that's cool. The last time that I was here was a good while ago, and it hasn't worked out for me to be able to attend. So I'm really happy that I was able to be here again today. Let me see here. Let me get my stuff ready. I guess, to be really honest, this piece that I'm going to read is not necessarily um uh I didn't write it with the thought of the theme for tonight. But if I'm thinking about it, then it definitely does tie into things that I have found are time sucks. Just in the kind of in the realm of things that I find myself wasting or spending a lot of my time, my mental time thinking about or holding on to or reliving. Um, and so I think that in that sense, it does it does align and fall into um, the theme for tonight. So one of the things, and I think I read a little bit about my last poem that I read, touched a little bit on some stuff that I remember from my childhood. And so that's one of the biggest things I've been trying to find a way to honor the memories, even the bad ones, but not get stuck in this whirlwind of, just like piteous thoughts or, unhappy thoughts. So one thing that has always helped me and particularly lately, that's helping me to kind of sort these memories out is actually writing about them, and specifically writing the memories and the way that they come back to me. So this poem that I'm going to read is called "The Lemon-Filled Donut," and this does have to do with my childhood memories. So I will go ahead and get started. So it says, on a morning where the sun was warm, but the air was chilly, in the little mildewy apartment in East Dallas that grew mushrooms out of the carpet, where the rotted bathroom ceiling caved in while I was on the toilet, where my favorite aunt and namesake came to visit me, my dad walked in with a white box of donuts. "Did you get any lemon filled?" I asked. "No," he snapped back. "Aw, man," slipped out of my eager 9-year-old mouth, and my 9-year-old face was met with the sting of his thick, heavy hand. The callus on his palms, the hatred in his eyes. To this day, I am weary of men's calloused hands and angry eyes. To this day, I am afraid to ask for lemon-filled donuts. Through the sticky phlegm of anxiety that makes the lungs feel like anvils sinking to ocean floors, that turn the terrain outside of my front door into gnashing teeth and claws, I get dressed. I take down the trash that is piling up in my kitchen. I fight the fear that death is at the bottom of my staircase. I had a dog named Roxy when I was a child. She would guard me with her whole body against the fists of family members. When she died of poisoning, my dad punished me for crying too much for an animal. She came back to me years later, in my 30s, in an adopted Aussie shepherd of the same name and spelling, Roxy, Roxy. We walk together down the street. The air is chilly, but the sun is warm. Down the block to the donut shop. I order myself 3 pigs in a blanket, a pint of chocolate milk, and a lemon-filled donut. I carry a white plastic bag in my right hand. I hold Roxy's leash in my left. We walk back home, my home, where I am never unwanted or unwelcome. My home where no one makes me leave or slaps my face for asking questions, where I sit on my couch with my sparkly pillows, with my dog who is allowed to sleep on my bed if I damn well please. I tear open the brown paper bag for my sticky treasure. I anticipate the taste. The happy yellow inside, the freedom of a little girl who asked the most innocent of questions, enjoying this bit of life. She is my daughter now, and I will honor her curiosity, respect her opinions, listen to her voice, celebrate her big heart and vast feelings. I will let me enjoy this simplicity, and will even give last little piece to our best friend Roxy. That first bite into the dough is the shape of a smile, is the sun in the dark, is the sweet and the tart lemon-filled donut. Thank you.
I love lemon filled and raspberry filled anything. But yes, it's like a full circle, coming back to the thing that you were denied and or mocked about wanting. Um, yes. Thank you. Thank you for the pace of that too. I'm glad, poems like that shouldn't be rushed, in my humble opinion. Is there someone who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Oh, right on,
different-
Lorraine.
A different take on the topic.
Sure.
This is called Journeying Our Roads.
Journeying,
Journeying Our Roads.
Ah, thanks.
What do travelers do during a bus ride from one destination to another. Some fall into conversations with a neighbor, exchanging tales. Others write in journals or write poems, the script jumping with each bump in their road. Some take the time to read, savoring their mother tongue so far from home. Another counts the stitches of rough wool yarn, wooden needles clicking, knitting something for this cold foreign clime. Some bite a sandwich or nibble from a bag of dried nuts and fruits. And others fall into the oblivion of jostled dreams until their new destination is reached.
I've been there. I've been there. Sitting on bumpity bus rides, like in Mexico, and seeing the turistas pulling out their journals. And I love looking at the kind of journals people have, you know, little ones, big ones. Some of them draw, some of them use colored markers. Some people are just with the black ink pen. Yeah, I love watching that, you know, people just settling into their domain of existence on the communal ride across the country. I was looking for a piece that not finding yet. I guess I'll keep looking for it while I'm talking. So I think I let myself consider this afternoon, thinking about time suck, consider that as a poet, as a writer, I'm allowing a lot of time to be spent on the kind of processing of a piece. This is before it becomes before I start the writing, you know, processing the imagery or the message I want to share, thinking how it'll come out, what kind of language, what kind of tone. All of that's a major commitment in terms of, you know, the use of time, spending time, taking time, just like anything, like, you know, pro tennis players, you know, have to be on that court all the time, right? Practicing, finessing their skills. But what do we have to show for that time spent as amateur poets, as people that might not necessarily become the next Joy Harjo or I don't know. Think of another famous poet. Think of people like Bob Dylan's considered a poet, apparently. Okay, I found that poem, so I don't have to ramble anymore. But yeah, my commitment to writing poetry, and it is a use of time. It is a time suck, but I don't at all feel like I need that time back. I feel like it's, for me, a great expenditure of my life term here with you. Okay, this one, I might have read it before at one of these events, so sorry if it bores you again. So this one is titled Why I Watched That Movie a Second Time, which is, I don't know, raise your hand, let me know. I mean, do y'all feel like it's ever worth it to watch a movie a second or third or fourth time? Is that a waste of time, or is that an okay thing? Oh, and my nephew's arriving from his walk, so I'm gonna let him pass through before I start reading. I don't know that I would ever read a novel twice. Though maybe I've done like quick rereads of a snippet or a chapter, certain section. Hello. Um, there's a Kurt Vonnegut short story that I love to read at least every 5 years or whenever I think of it. It makes me so happy. And I don't consider that a waste of time. Because it reifies me, invigorates me. So I'm gonna read this. It's a short little kind of meandering introspective thing I wrote. Why I watched that movie a second time. Will I get that horrible, pukey, anxious overwhelm again, like I did at the Angelica Theater in Dallas, watching Terrence Malick's Tree of Life? And if I do, oh, I dread this. During what scene or part of the film does that incredible angst kick in? Will it be the same scene for both viewings for me? I watched The Last Black Man in San Francisco, circa 2019, again on Tubi TV on Thursday, one half, and then last night, second half, so I could figure out where the storytelling falters for me and where in the film I started to doze off when I saw it the first time. Did I get drowsy because of the pacing of the film, or because it was a weeknight and I hadn't gotten to have a nap first? And what is the feeling that left me so intrigued by the cinematography and lighting and the depiction of the city by the bay in a way that focused on the contemporary BIPOC experience there? Will I get that feeling back on second viewing? If I watch the Mika Kaurismäki's film Three Wise Men around the holidays, will I possibly enjoy it even more the second time? Or can I go ahead and let myself watch it sometime this summer? Will the story suffer if it's hot outside where I'm watching it? And can I possibly rave about how much I loved the Oscar-winning Danish film Another Round to my non-drinking friends? Would that be obnoxious? If I watch it a second time, will it be just as robust a script and just as emotionally moving for me, especially that last scene? Was I drinking when I watched it the first time? Comments, feedback? I'm serious. Is there anybody here opposed to watching a film more than once?
I think that for me, like if I know that the film was really difficult for me to get through, like say for instance, what's the one with Leonardo DiCaprio where he's like in a dream and a dream and a dream?
Shutter Island.
No, okay, he has more than one like that then. It's
Inception.
He's so dreamy.
Inception. Yes. Inception. That fucking movie gave me a panic attack. I would not watch that again.
Okay,
but
I hear that. Yeah,
yeah,
if it's demoralizing, if it's problematic to the extent that it would undo you to see it again. Yeah, then yeah, no repeats on that. But when a film is remade, you kind of maybe sometimes you want to see the new rendition. I have a copy on VHS of Great Expectations, a take on the of the great novel. And in this rendition of Great Expectations cinematically, it's Gwyneth Paltrow and who's our boy from Texas? Um, Ethan Hawke
mm,
playing the lead roles. Why am I blanking on who wrote Great Expectations? Help me out.
Charles Dickens.
Dickens, yeah, Dickens. Yeah. So, and I happened to go online and see, okay, this version, the cinematic adaptation of the Dickens novel was panned by critics, but I found it interesting and I still have the VHS tape. I haven't thrown it away. So I want to have it. There's something in it that I want to study. Maybe it's about how broken relationships are worth not giving up on? Or is it maybe about Robert De Niro playing like really creepy roles, like serially, and we love him for those, like Cape Hope,
Mm.
oh, Cape Fear. Cape Fear. Oh my gosh, Cape Fear. This is me and my movie moment. Sorry. One of my exes once told me that was his favorite film. And when I first saw it, I think we watched it together, his favorite film. I felt like our relationship needed to end because I couldn't believe that somebody would call that their favorite film. Um,
Mm.
and I mean, there's a lot of manipulation and exploitation of females in that, and some, really, ugh. I mean, the De Niro role is really yuck. Um, but I creeped myself out by looking for scenes on YouTube of that film because I wanted something. There was some aspect of that film that I needed to be reminded about or to view. So anyway, Patricia, how this relates to the thing is like, are these things a time suck when we go back and reread a novel or enjoy or try to enjoy a film the second time? Was it real that first hit? Was that the real hit? Or was there a context watching it the first time that makes you think, oh, I think it's worth a second viewing, and then maybe it's a time
Yeah.
suck.
I can hear that. Actually, I have a piece that because one of the films that I saw when I was young, my mom told me to watch it when I was young, and then I watched it again as an adult. That was definitely, I would not think of it as a time suck, but for us, or for because I grew up kind of rural in Texas. So I was like, every time I was looking for Chicano film, is like La Bamba, Mi Familia, Blood In, Blood Out. I was like, that stuff is really great, but I can't relate to it because I grew up in like the Panhandle. And so my mom told me to watch Giant. So I watched Giant with James Dean and all that. And that movie kind of made sense, but I was young, so I was kind of like, I don't know. And then when I got to college and I watched it again, I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is even more interesting than I remembered. Like there's a lot of really intense parts of it that I think are good for us to see. So I watch that movie like once a year.
and and I've never seen it all the way through. I've seen some iconic, I guess they're iconic excerpts, that
Uh-huh.
get trotted out for film class or whatever, or a James Dean moment. But yeah, that's one I will savor when I see it. So were you going to read a poem? Do you have a poem relating to that? And welcome to
I
the
have,
space.
yeah, sorry I'm late. I think I forgot that it was 8 o'clock your time, not 8 o'clock my time. So it's 8 o'clock here. But and it's been cold and snowy all day, so I've kind of
Oh,
been zoned out. But I do have a piece, but I don't have to read it right this minute. I was just talking about like that movie became a sort of like every person that I've connected with, there's some connection through that film because it's so important. And one little anecdote I have is there's a film that was derived from it called Children of the Movie Giant. That's on PBS. It's like a PBS American Experience film. And they're talking to all the little Mexicano kids that were extras. They were like little kids who were extras in the film. And they're remembering like what it was like with Elizabeth Taylor and, James Dean and all of them coming through. And this is what's in that piece I wrote is there's a story in there where one of the kiddos talks about they had a teacher, it was speak Spanish only kind of situation. I mean, speak English only. And they had a teacher who had them write Spanish words on pieces of paper. So these would have been like first or second graders. So this teacher had them write Spanish words on pieces of paper, and then she put it in a box and buried it and said, there, your language is, we're
ooh,
burying your language. And all these kiddos remembered her doing that.
evil ritual. Oh
Great
my God.
documentary. Great documentary.
Ugh. And is that available now? Can people see that,
Um,
do you think?
I have it on DVD. I think you must be able to buy it. It's called Children of the Movie Giant or Children from the Movie Giant, something like that. Let me
Thanks for
see.
thanks for the
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yeah, I can put it in the thing in the chat.
Look at imdb.com, Internet Movie Database.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Children of Giant. There it is.
Um, you know, when you mentioned Giant, I thought of The Last Picture Show, which is based on the McMurtry novel, the same title, and how when I watch that, I feel like it's about the Texas I know. And
Mhm.
even though there isn't a character whatsoever in that film that looks like me or reflects how I lived, that film still depicts the way I walked through Texas, especially in the 70s and 80s, where I was there, but I was invisible. I wasn't even acknowledged or noticed by the Sybil Shepherd character or the Cloris Leachman ladies in my town, or the Bottoms brothers, Timothy Bottom and the other guy who played, they, or Jeff Bridges. I guess it was Jeff Bridges in that. Yeah, like that's how I felt navigating through North Texas in the late 60s and 70s and 80s, is that they were there, they were central, they were main characters, and I was on the edges. I was, sidestepping them on sidewalks or at the back of the auditorium for some meeting. So I felt like that film does reflect how I was living during those olden days. But that's
I
not
love
enough.
that
That's not
memory.
enough for me anymore. Definitely
Yeah,
not enough
yeah,
for me anymore.
yeah. I feel the same about that movie.
Jeffrey, do you have something you'd like to share?
I don't have any written piece. I have some reflections on the conversation. This is something that came up when you first talked about movies or books that you've read or seen, whether it's a time suck to see them again. Um, I was trying to think of examples of things that I wanted to see, and at first I couldn't come up with any. And the But then I realized just recently I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, uh, and we both have experience of uh, people uh, with psychological problems that back in the day used to be called different forms of bipolar disorder, manic depressive, or paranoid schizophrenic, or whatever. And the movie Sophie's Choice came up, and I was remembering how impactful the movie Sophie's Choice was when I watched it the first time, and realized that I've spent a lot of time since then um, working on different kinds of somatic therapies for dealing with different kinds of traumas, and uh, it made me want to see the movie again, um, even though it was one of those movies that tears your heart out when you watch it. Um, so And there are some books that I've read. It's funny, the books that I've read are either poetry or nonfiction, that are books that I have reread. And there's some that I read when I was in my 20s, and then read again in my 40s, and then read again. That and the whole realm of almost everything that Hermann Hesse wrote are books that, when I first read them back in my 20s, I found them very powerful and meaningful for me. And this now, more recently reading them, they're still meaningful for me, but they're totally different. It's like a whole different book. And that's because I've changed so much. The me who read it the first time is not. I'm a different incarnation of me now, and that's the. So I guess, my response to the prompt for this is that it's never a time suck if you are a different person now than you were when you first encountered it. So, end thought.
I thank you for sharing that, Jeffrey, and kind of, leaning into that, kind of acceptance of, you being a different person, encountering a work that you've savored and experienced before. Where I have intersected with that kind of experience is when I think about the fact that I do know people that reread work that they love, and then it makes me think maybe I should stop acquiring new books and just keep 10 and just reread them. If I'm becoming, if I'm constantly becoming, and transforming and, changing, then it's like it's almost like an amnesia. Like, oh, if I'm gonna have amnesia anyway about this work, well, maybe I'll just have the one book and I'll just reread it and get a fresh new take every time, and I don't need to get new books. And is that a limitation, a self limitation? Does that narrow your field of knowledge or access to the breadth of intellectual wisdom and info that's out there? I don't know. That doesn't have to be answered. That's kind of rhetorical, me saying that. But I have a lot of books here in my place, and I've only read, yeah, I see those every month, Jeffrey. I assume you read them at least once in your younger, in one of your previous selves. There are many here I've never read, even, my older self. So I won't ever know the experience of reading some of these books as my younger self. I'll only be my older, now changed self. And maybe when I bought them, I would have loved them more if I'd read them then. And now I'm going to be reading them 20 years later as an older person. And it's like, it's just like that, the snake eating itself type of, I don't know, philosophical quandary I create for myself sometimes, which in and of itself can be a time suck because it keeps me from doing and acting because I'm thinking about, should I or should I not?
One series of books that were really different for me as a grown-up than as a kid, and I read them, I don't know how many times when I was a kid, was the Chronicles of Narnia. Then I hadn't read them in like 10 years, and I loved them so much that I decided to buy my own copies of them. instead of going to the library and checking them out, to have them for myself. And I was totally blown away by the philosophical and religious arguments that he put into these stories that were for kids. But one that I am on my second reading, it's my faithful travel companion. I bought it on my first trip to Latin America, is the Don Quixote in the original Spanish. It's a edition that has both the first and the second book. It's illustrated. And, it's one of those books where every time you read it, you'll notice something different. And I came out of the first reading of it with 3 questions that friends of mine who are scholars of Spanish literature didn't know the answers to. And that is, was it Rocinante, male or female horse? What was the name of Sancho Panza's wife? And then now I can't remember what the third question was. But those 2 questions, all 3 questions, they didn't know the answers to. And then when I began reading it the second time, I kept looking for the answers to those questions and making notations of where to find the answer. Sancho Panza's wife has 4 names with different first names, different last names. So I guess Cervantes forgot what her name was too.
I am so charmed by your fascinations. Each of you, each of us who've spoken. I just find that very charming to know that y'all are, as I used to say, sucking clock. Y'all are sucking clock in such fascinating ways. And sucking clock means, like passing time. That's so delicious. Thank y'all. I mean, that could be a documentary in and of itself. Is like these investigations each of us are doing with the books that we put on repeat, or films that we put on repeat. I'm going to share screen now and introduce a piece that I wrote 3 years ago, maybe, and I also created an installation art piece about this work. And here's how I'll introduce it right here. Okay. The piece is titled Sentenced, and it's based on a dream that I had in 2020, in the summer of 2020, when we were in lockdown. Sentenced. And then the quote is from a friend of mine who's a professor. I think he's in New York now. To be made to anticipate violence is already to experience violence. James McMaster. I will work to disappear myself so I'm not seen by haters who try to erase me. I will not stand by the window when white supremacists drive onto our yard, threatening my family from the back of their revving red pickup truck. I will never forget that I am expected to live like my BIPOC family is under permanent siege. Okay, I've got the chalk. I will write this 100 times on the board, and just so I don't forget, I will wear a black hoodie with these sentences written all over it to remind me. And Grandma says we're moving to California. So one one day I woke up from a dream that terrified me, and in the dream, a truckload of white supremacists drove up on into the front yard of my mother's home, and we were really terrified. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We were being yelled at, threatened. They might have had like a Confederate flag waving, and there's a bunch of guys in the back of the bed of the truck, and somebody was driving the truck, and they were cutting, this, track right in our yard. And eventually they peeled off and left, threatening, with threatening tones in their voices. And they left, and immediately there were three of us, three females, three females, and then a young male child. We all focused on the male child who had been standing by the window looking out and seeing these guys. And we immediately started berating and scolding the child. Like, you don't ever stand by the window when there's white supremacists in the back of their truck in our yard. And, you now have to go in the back room, and you're going to write that 100 times on this chalkboard. And then when I looked again at the child, they were wearing a black hoodie that had those words already written on them. I will not stand by the window when white supremacists drive onto our yard, threatening my family from the back of their revving red pickup truck, like over and over. And then there was a grandma, who I think was my mom, that character saying, well, we're going to move to California. So that happened, and I was really bothered by it. We remember what the middle of that year felt like for us for numerous reasons. So it was on my mind all day long. And that evening, let's say about 9 or 10 p.m. that evening, I happened to go on Facebook to our neighborhood Facebook group page. And there was a post from somebody who was asking for support because she wrote that the night before, a very agitated male had driven up onto their yard, hitting a little garden fence, knocking it over in their front yard, and that he was threatening them, her family, an indigenous family, from through the window of the pickup truck, which he'd driven up in their yard. And he also threatened to come back and kill them, is what he did. And so this person was asking for support, wondering if people could just be on the lookout for the driver of that pickup truck. And they also mentioned that the police were very undermining of, the severity of that kind of attack. And I was absolutely astounded that my dream resonated with what actually had happened to that family who live. Well, they've actually moved away. They're renting their house. They didn't stay, so they don't even live here anymore. But yeah, they resided less than 10 blocks from where I am. And I just felt like something had broken through, like this, a veil, that separates me from others. And I felt like maybe I had a capacity to predict or prevent actions and moments like that. And anyway, I went into this huge, long internal thing, and I stayed up till 3 a.m. because I was really alarmed and agitated about it. And I felt like I had to do something. I felt like some sort of responsibility for what happened. No, I didn't cause it to happen, but I felt like if I have predictive value with my dreams, that I want to be able to benefit others when it comes to things like that. So eventually I did create a piece titled Sentenced, which I showed at an art exhibit in Dallas. So I'll just show you the image for that. And I tried to reach out to the young woman who'd written that post, but I could never reach her. And I've never talked to her in person, but I really wanted her to see this art exhibit. I created an installation piece. The cage is like a dog kennel that I have. I covered it with black paper and then made these hoodies that were surrounding the exterior of the work. And then on the inside, there was a projection of a video, a looping video, where guys pull up in a pickup truck onto a yard and start yelling very bigoted things. So I engaged three white males who are friends of mine to portray white supremacists, which was an interesting experience for them. So I felt like that helped me process that dream and get that kind of out of my system, and also explore, the idea of, just putting your dreams out there, and if it helps somebody else, helps them prevent, some accident or incident from happening to them or to others, then that will be a benefit of my dream. So anyway, that may seem like a huge time suck in terms of, exploding out this focus, something that came through me from my night dream, to connecting it with a neighbor's experience, her family's experience, to creating an art piece about that all. That was like a year-long commitment, give or take a few months. But that's what artists do. So
Yeah, I mean, I would never say, there's two things I want to say. First, I want to say that's one of the things that's like a gift about those kinds of dreams. It's like, it's hard to trust that dream, in that it's there to show you how to help other people sort of process what they're dealing with. Like, that's what I found with dreams, is it's like, regardless of whether you know why you dreamed it, when you tell the story, somebody needs to hear it. For whatever reason, that's exactly what they've been needing to hear. And in like the case you just talked about, it turned into this piece of art that probably saved a handful of, this is maybe going to sound an exaggeration, but I don't think it is, probably saved a handful of lives, right? Kept people a little bit away from the edge. That one time they encountered that piece, the story that they got to tell about seeing the piece, a connection that got forged, in some other way that's, related, even if it's just tangential to what they saw with your work.
when I refer to it as a time suck, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not regretful about the time that I spent on these investigations. Just like, what we shared earlier about the books and films we are kind of focused or fixated on. I would never say those are, you've wasted time. It's just, I know personally some people, including possibly my mother, who would not understand
Right.
why I would spend so much time on that when I could just be actually, be focused on petty things like trash bins out in the street or something.
Right.
But I do get it that other people don't get us, don't
Right.
understand our fascinations, in our investigational choices.
Yeah. But that, I'd never seen that. That's beautiful.
I'm in a
Thank you.
Zoom book group that that started right after the murder of George Floyd, and we read Resmaa Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands. And one of the things that Resmaa Menakem has the group do, and that we've done as a group, is to take a situation like the one in your dream. And it's funny, I mean, I've used almost the exact same thing, even though I'm a white-bodied person. The idea of you know MAGA Trumpsters driving up in their pickup truck and threatening me is valid also. It's threatening to everybody. Although it doesn't have the specific BIPOC emphasis. But what Resma Menachem asks people to do is imagine that situation and then get in touch with their body. And what are they feeling? What are you feeling in your body? And so your artwork calls for people to do the same thing, to see your work of art and then respond to it and get in touch with their body while they're experiencing your artwork. And what are they feeling? Where are they feeling it? What emotions come up? What narratives come into their head? What images? What bodily urges do you want to run? Do you want to, do you have a freeze, flight, fight, fawn? What kind of response do you have to the artwork? And any artwork that affects you viscerally in your body like that it's what Resma Menachem calls a rep. You've got to get your reps in because this is happening more and more. More and more people are experiencing this more and more. And you need to be able to respond when it actually happens, not just react. Because if you react, you're reacting from a trigger that's based in the past, and you need to be able to respond in the present. So it's, what you did is, and I also agree that your dreams and other things can be providing you with information that's valuable to other people. So thank you for doing what you did.
Are there others who would like to read something, anything?
Is it possible, well, something that kind of is a time suck for me, but I mean, for good reasons, is my art. If I,
You want to share your screen?
sure,
Okay.
I'm trying to find one that will let's see, share screen. I'm trying to get it to open up. It's not opening up yet. Well, I've long drawn, but especially with the pandemic, I began drawing a lot more frequently. And so now I've got hundreds and hundreds of drawings. Like, is it showing?
Ah, yes.
Yes.
I'm kind of lost.
We saw it, Lorraine, we saw it. It was a like a pencil drawing, an ink drawing.
Lorraine disappeared from my screen.
Oh gosh. Yeah, last thing she said was I'm lost. So hopefully she'll be back. That's a really intriguing piece of work.
Mhm.
I have something, I mean, it goes in line with the movies that we were talking
Oh
about,
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of.
please, please.
Very, very, very short. And I think it talks a little bit about, I don't think I realized till we were having this conversation how much I write about TV and film. I just never share it. But I have this little tiny thing. So this is about it's like a paragraph. And it's like part of a memoir thing that I'm maybe thinking about making more public. I don't know. But here goes. The video stop was on the road that led into Hunsley Hills. Of course, I didn't live in Hunsley Hills. Very few people I knew did. It was the rich part of town, brick houses, two-story houses, houses with swimming pools, etc., etc. I mean, it was the place with the best Christmas lights and Halloween candy, but that just meant I only ever went there on October 31st and random days between Thanksgiving and New Year's. Anyway, it's the video stop that I'm talking about here. Aunt Irma had gotten us the VCR, and now that we lived in town, now that we had left my dad, I needed something to entertain me, something to keep my mind off everything that was happening. Divorce, my dad's rage, his drinking, my mom's sudden nightly absences, and what better thing than movies on tape? So this is where I discovered Star Wars. This is where I rented episode 4 a handful of times, but The Empire Strikes Back dozens of times to watch over and over again that first kiss between Han Solo and Princess Leia, to hear him say, I know, to her declaration of love. That set the stage. I didn't know it then, but the die was cast. I know would be all I ever needed to satisfy me. As long as someone said it like Han Solo, I would be good. Haha, man, was I fooled. There you go.
Nice.
Yes, Empire Strikes Back. That is like, it hurts my heart when I watch it because I love it, but it reminds me of that time of just being a little bit lost. And it was the thing that I would go back to that would make me feel better over and over again every weekend.
And it was consistently doing that for you?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah. When I was,
that's great that you could rely on it to give you that boost.
unfortunately, it also set the model for toxic men.
Oh, oh, I have a piece about toxic men, and hopefully Lorraine will come back soon. And I'm gonna share the screen actually for this piece. And anytime if folks want to share their screen when they're reading a piece, that's cool with me. Just let me know. This is like my take on the Friday Night Lights thing, Texas football.
Ah, yes.
Okay, and the title is in bold. It's a long title. Let's see if I can. Yeah, anti-fascist at the Friday night Texas high school football game, or repro justice advocate at the Friday night Texas high school football game, or sexual assault survivor at the Friday night Texas high school football game, or assault weapons ban activist at the Friday night Texas high school football game. There he is, that star quarterback with quick and muscular hands, and some of us have heard how he uses them. And he slapped her and called her a cochina Antonina. And he said if she didn't comply and enjoy it, he'd report her family to be deported. And he raped her 3 different ways in the time it took him to make a 3rd down and goal last week. And he said if she said anything to anyone, unless of course it was complimentary, that his uncle told him he was welcome to borrow his AR-15 if he ever needed it. And she's pregnant and afraid, and she's silent, and he knows it. And he throws it, makes a pass that everyone in that city cheers, coming to their feet and almost bowing at his. And the win is a cinch for his team, and the kudos will keep coming, and he will always be the hometown hero on Friday nights at the Texas high school football game.
That's amazing. Yeah. One thing about hearing your work is it reminds me so much. We're from the same place. It's home. Like that kind of culture, that kind of all of that, right? And experience it as a brown woman. Yeah, 100. That's powerful.
I'm sorry if you all feel I should have given a trigger warning for that. So I hope it didn't hurt or offend y'all, or if it did, that you understand I'm coming from a place of trying to share art and not trying to wound or open up wounds. Thank you.
I'd like to share another piece.
Go for it, Anita.
I would like to comment on what you said. I believe in the courtesy of trigger warnings. I personally don't feel that I need them for myself, but I have witnessed people, in the past that have they've had pretty strong reactions to things. But I personally didn't have any issue with it, and I specifically with your last piece, I found it to be very very strong, and I think a lot of times I like the way that you worded everything, really like just very stark, and it was kind of like a slap in the face, but it was meant to be. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's important for sometimes for things to not get uh embedded in too many, many fancy words. So I appreciate that piece, and thank you for sharing that with us. Let me pull up the other one that I was going to read. So another part of me not getting stuck in time sucks. One of my big ones, especially with my family, is trying to save them. So I don't know if I told you all this, if this has happened since the last time I was able to be part of the circle, the poetry circle again. But I made the decision that I was going to divorce myself from my family for a time. Just because there's just too much shit, and I am always the one that's drowning, trying to fix everything, trying to hold everything together. And that has proven to be really difficult, but a really good decision for myself. And so I have been able to really come to terms with putting down my my sword and my shield when it comes to defending people or fighting for people who just really do not want to be saved. And that's a really hard thing to accept, especially when it comes to, family members. Some people they're just content. And it doesn't matter if they're content because of their traumas, or they're content because of mental illness. It doesn't matter if the real reason for them being content, because there's nothing that we can do to change other people around us. So this is a poem that I wrote while I was thinking about those circumstances. One person in particular that I have a very difficult time with accepting that I cannot save this person is my mother. And so this poem I wrote is called The Freedom I Imagine for My Mother. The freedom I imagine for my mother. It is bright yellow and warm like the palms of her hands. It is rows and rows of the books she never sits down to read. The windows are blue and the tears are happy. Here her witch magic hatches and spreads its wings under vast skies and wishes coming true. And there lives her familiar. It purrs against her ankles and warms away the arthritis from her lap. There are big cups of lemon tea and golden honey by the jarful. There is quiet, the kind of quiet that comes with calm, not the stubborn quiet of anger and resentment. The trinkets and happy knickknacks live in places where they will never be thrown or broken against walls. They are safe to simply exist, and she is safe to exist as well. Her silver hair grows back long and thick, and she paints color on her face without ridicule. The reflections in her mirror says, "You are beautiful," and she repeats in full belief. There are closets bursting with patterned dresses, and her mind is full of vivid dreams. She speaks to the spirit of her mother in peace and love. There are no long thought out excuses. Hesitancy has withered away like the weeds she no longer has to tend to. Life is blossoming and robust with the flowers of laughter, laughter that is never too loud. Her marijuana smoke is always billowy and thick and therapeutic. The thrift stores are full of treasures for her to find. Her ears are heavy with sterling silver. The stories of her chewed up wedding band and the torn up marriage certificate held together with yellowing tape do not exist here. They don't dare poke their horned heads out of the bruises and the inkwells of the past. Pillows full of sadness come apart at the seams and are filled with fresh clouds of cotton. She welcomes sleep when it kisses her eyelids heavy. There are friends and happy secrets. There are reasons to live with a smile and eyes squinting from joy. The words flow like streams and the feelings are felt and honored. This freedom needs no walls or fortress. This freedom does not need balled up fists or tongues dipped in poison. This freedom is unconditional and as vast as the years that lay ahead of her. She stands in fields of tall grass and dances under raindrops. She braids the coarse hair of her brown-eyed pony and does not flinch at an outstretched hand or a soft touch. She speaks loudly and with the confidence of a bursting firecracker, and she lights up the sky like she was always meant to do. Thank you.
Wow, that's gorgeous and amazing. It's like an incantation for her perpetual peace. Has she heard it? Have you read that to her at all? Or in her midst? Have you read that near her?
I have not. I wrote that last month, and I thought about sending it to her, but I have not. I will share it with her. She has always been one of my biggest supporters since I started doing reading poetry. At poetry readings and stuff, I started when I was about 16, and so she's always been there. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing, you know. But I will share it with her eventually, just when I think when I feel a little bit more equipped to do so. But I have a funny story about the point of reading and rereading books specifically. I found a book years ago. I must have been about 14 or 15 years old. I found it at a thrift store. And it was, I enjoy old books. And so I have a collection of books that are from like the 1850s and then the early 1910s. And so this book was from 1903. And the book is called Beautiful Joe's Paradise. And the book stuck out to me because it was red. And also it had a picture of this, like a bull mastiff type looking like dog, look kind of like a bulldog. And so I'm a dog lover, so this book stuck out to me. So I picked it up and I've carried it with me. I've been through so many different situations. I've lived out, I've been homeless and lived in halfway homes since that time and bounced around. And for some way, this book has always been able to stay as part of my core belongings. And so I started to read the book, and I would read about a chapter or two chapters in, and then I would put the book down, and I would put the book down for years because I decided that this was my favorite book and that I never, ever wanted it to end. So if I never finished the book, then it would never end. And last year, I actually finished the book, and I was like, damn it, I should have just never finished it because the book wound up being really crappy.
Oh, it was disappointing.
Which
Oh no.
it was super disappointing, and it had some really like fucked up like racial undertones, because of and but it was funny because I was like, well, if this is the metaphor for some parts of my life, then okay, you expect things to be like really great, and you keep revisiting them because they make you feel really great, and then it turns out that they're not even that great. So, but I don't consider it a time suck. I felt a lot of comfort and I felt a lot of happiness in reliving that, and I would probably go back and reread the first 3 chapters just because that was super magical, and then about halfway in is when it started to turn to shit. So I'd probably just drop off that at that point again. But I wanted to share that story with you all because yes.
Oh, that's priceless right there. Well, maybe you were trying to save yourself from that disappointing ending also by not going any further. Oh my God.
I think so.
Hold
I
on,
think so.
Rogue. Stop there.
Yeah.
Stop. That's enough.
Yeah.
I loved The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by our guy Juno Diaz, and I vowed that I would never finish reading that either because I loved it so much, and I haven't read the ending. And then when I thought, well, I should finish it, I enjoy it. That's silly for me to not read it. He got 86. He got canceled, and now I don't even want to read it. You know,
Mm.
but at the same time, I own like three, I own several copies of it, including an uncorrected proof that a publisher gave me. So I'm like, I'll probably make money off of that one someday. Um, when I need to pay a bill, maybe I'll try to sell that. But yeah, I too am of that ilk where I love something so much, I don't want it to end. Um, like chocolate silk pie, you leave that last piece on the plate. Ah, and then you eat it because it's there, and then you're like, but like that with books and pie and movies and people,
I can't I
maybe
can't do that
people.
with pie.
You can't do that with pie.
No. I have no self-control when it comes to pie.
Do we do that with people? Do we stop with people, with relationships, where we just go, I've seen one red flag too many, or maybe it's rose colored, but that's close enough to red, and I'm done.
Mhm.
Thank you for reading all that and bearing your soul, Anita. That really wonderful piece. The freedom I imagined for my mother. That's wow.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'll just mention that I'm gonna check in with Lorraine after this event, just make sure she's okay. She lives on another continent, and things are sometimes complicated where she lives, so I'll check in with her later. But she's been having internet connectivity issues for a month or so, so something might have fallen apart with the wireless stuff there. Uh, I would love to hear a few more pieces. We have about 15 minutes of our anticipated time together. We can end early, or let's hear a few more pieces. I'd like not to read anymore. I don't want to center myself too much. I don't want to be a time suck.
I didn't bring anything.
Richard also gave his regret that he couldn't make it. He's just been through a lot recently. I think, was it just last week that he no, it was last time we were together that he had um attended his brother's funeral service. But he's still going back and forth. I think he's about to travel back to New Jersey to help clear out his brother's home. So he's really up to a lot right now.
I have another piece that I would be happy to share, if that's cool with everybody.
Please go ahead.
Okay. This one is called My Religion is a Flower. My religion is a flower blooming inside of me. It is all at once full and soft as it is dry and fragrant. It is a gold flame in a dark room. It is prayer and peace and smoke and water. It is tears and tongues and confessing my own great need and my own great power. It is satchels and red thread. It is white wax and sweat on tan skin. It is the anchor and the dirt beneath my feet and between my fingers. It is new and ancient. I am learning and relearning. I am salving the wounds of my family, both living and past. My understanding is the cool rag on the feverish cheek of trauma and the abuse that was learned and taught to never call the beast by its name. My hands hold tightly around the neck of enslaved minds and emotions. I squeeze and feel the rippled popping of its release as it dies in my hands, and in that same breath, I give it life. I let go its fragile body. It flies away on snowy wings and a promise. In my brown eyes is the soil, and with my tears I sow the seeds. In my prayerful uttering, I ask for the strength to do it all again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That felt like a salve. It felt like a salve for me, hearing you read that.
That was in 2021 when I was still trying to save my family. That's the old one. But
I once sent a letter when I was living in Austin. I sent it to my family. It was like a letter for all of them to read together. And they were very confused by it, and they didn't talk to me for several months. And I do remember, I didn't save a copy of that letter, I don't think. I do remember saying, I cannot save you. I actually wrote that. Like, I care, I love y'all, but I cannot save you. And I had to write that for me.
There's also that feeling, I've been struggling with it, and hearing you read that, Anita, and then you say that, Tammy, I've been struggling with it. Like, what does it mean to come from a big family and not be able to like talk to them that much about who you are, what you do? Like, they're not necessarily open to hearing about those things. You know, you grew up with them. There's like 50 cousins. There's all these uncles and aunts, a grandma, mom. How do you all do that? I've been having the worst time for like a month where I'm just like, I feel so far away.
Yeah. Well, I think with the way that we were brought up, my father was like a really strict, like he was like real machisto, and you know, like he was just the ruler, the complete ruler of everything in the family. And so we grew up being really alienated from his side of the family and my mom's side of the family. So, you know, we have a huge family, but it was very systemic that we were kept away because of, you know, it's easier to hide a lot of abuse when there's not a lot of people around to see it, you know?
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I've had to kind of come to terms with the fact that I have dipped my toes and more into the the ponds of both sides of my family, and a lot of them are just assholes that I'm not really missing out on, you know. But that has, and that makes me sad because I see people that go to family reunions and they have, you know, they have all these uncles and these aunts that love them and praise them and support them, and they have a big crowd when they have accomplishments. it makes me sad to see that kind of, familial structure and not be able to claim that as my own experience.
Right.
But it has also really pushed me into understanding that the importance and the depth of chosen family.
Right.
So that's where I find my peace in, you know what I'm saying? Like I have a sister who I'm related to by blood, and I've shared more intimate details of my life with my dog than my actual sister. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, and then I have friends who refer to me as sister or little sister or baby sister. And those are the women that I would call before I ever thought about talking to my sister for, pretty much anything. So I've been able to find, a sense of peace and a sense of belonging, a huge sense of belonging in my chosen family, and it doesn't take the sting away completely, but it definitely like soothes it.
Yeah.
Because you're able to remind yourself like, okay, I'm not an orphan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it feels sometimes. You feel like an orphan, and it's like, how am I an orphan and all my family is still around? You know what I mean? How does that work? But that's how I have found myself, coping with having that sort of separation from my bloodline.
Yeah. And your poems are so good at talking about that. Like what you really are doing, like that balance is so beautiful. And I think that's what I needed to hear. So thank you for sharing those.
I have I've found that I had a lot of affiliation, I guess, with one cousin who also was an actor, and he did like performance monologues. He actually played, I think he played Geronimo
Mm.
in a one-man show. He did Shakespearean theater, but then he died suddenly, and people aren't exactly sure why. Like he collapsed on the kitchen floor, and it might have been an aneurysm that took his life. It was some kind of sudden onset of a traumatic brain injury. But he was maybe in his early 40s when he passed. He was the one person that I could have had as my ally in, my biological cousin, and he's gone. And I have another biological cousin that was interested in the work I did, and he went to UT Austin while I was working there, so we got to hang out a little bit. But he is such a free spirit, and he's doing what he needs to do, that he doesn't even live in the US anymore. He's in the Philippines. So he's not here for me, but he's there for himself, and that makes sense. That's a good thing. And lately I've been thinking maybe to write him, send him a note, just so he knows I'm still kicking and doing stuff. But I've really, over the last, since the 90s, I've tried to cultivate a, what is it? Ethic, maybe a doctrine. I don't know. Just like, I just laid down this rule for myself to not ever require people I care about to follow or know my work, because really it's me that needs to know my work and to do my work and let it flow where it flows and fall on the ears of whomever wants to receive it. I cannot cling to hopes and ambitions of specific people getting it and receiving it and having it mean for them what it means to me. I have to let go of that, or I'm going to be miserable. And I've already been through that difficult work in the 90s with my closest family members. And so I've already severed that or blocked it or whatever I had to do. Probably cauterize some nerve endings is what I did. It was painful. It hurt like shit, to the letting go. The letting go. I love these people, but they're not going to know me this way. And even Sandra Cisneros told me when she went to the White House, or she was going to go to the White House to get the National Medal of Freedom or whatever it's called for artists, you know, and she revealed to me and some other person, we were around the table with her, and she said her family doesn't even get excited when, you know, it's like, oh, you got another award. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to go eat. You want to come with us? You know, or we're going, you know, we're having a barbecue, you know, whatever. They don't really respond. And that when she told her family she was going to get that specific award and had to go to the White House, she was hoping somebody would want to go with her. No family member expressed an interest in going with her. And when she was at the White House, there was somebody she was sitting next to. I don't know if it was like Diana Ross or, you know, so it was like somebody of that caliber who, you know, they kind of leaned on each other and said, yeah, me too, girlfriend. My family, they're not here for me, or they're not hearing this the way I'm hearing it, you know. So it even happens at that level too, where people are just not held by their own family.
Yeah. I have a really quick story to share. I know our time is almost up. When I remember when I graduated from high school, it was a big thing. It was a big thing. I had my family had kind of broken apart when I hit the age of 16, and that's when I first started to experience homelessness. And so I had to get myself, I dropped out my senior year. I had to get myself back into school so that I could graduate. And so I went through a whole bunch of shit to be able to graduate high school. And by the time I was going to be graduating, my parents and my family had kind of come back together. And I remember that my father refused to go to my graduation. And I was so heartbroken by it. And not only did he refuse, but he made it really difficult that day for me and my mom to be able to attend. And to this day, my heart still hurts that he didn't go, because out of me and my brother and my sister, I'm the only one that wound up, you know, graduating from high school and college and all of that stuff. But a couple of years back, I was asked to perform at the Black Academy through, I'm not sure if you know, Tammy, if you know B. Randall.
Yes, I do.
Brenda Randall. Okay, so it's one of her events that she hosts, and I was asked to come out and perform, and she was like, "Oh, it's a paid gig, blah blah blah," and I was like, "Hell yes," you know. So it turns out that I'm walking through the building, and I get anxiety attacks, so I wanted to go like the long route so I could have time to kind of get myself together. And there's a security girl there, and she's helping me navigate, and I realize the building that I'm in is the building that I graduated from. It used to be I think they used to call it the Reunion Arena, I think is what it used to be called, that building. And I remember like my dad, he used to physically punish me for writing poetry. He would say, "Oh, that's weird people do that, or white people do that." And you know what I mean? So it was like this thing that I would get punished for, and I would do it in secret. And here I am walking through this same building on my way to go and perform poetry as a means for me to take care of myself. And it was this fucking amazing, like, full circle. And I had to take a minute, and I got all teary-eyed and shit, and I let myself really feel it. You know what I mean? But it was like this amazing full circle moment, you know, when I'm walking down this hallway, and it just like everything just flooded back in, you know. But yeah, it's an amazing thing when you're able to kind of heal those kinds of wounds of, you know. But that's crazy to me to hear about Sandra Cisneros, because you know, she's definitely some levels up there, you know, as far as her work and everything. And it fucking sucks that our families, even when you get to that point, it can still sting, you know, for your blood family to not be able to show up for you in the ways that you want or need them to. But yeah. So.
But we're here for each other, and whether we know, you know, very little about each other's backgrounds or past histories, in this moment, for the few hours we share together monthly, when you're here and even when you're not, you've become part of this family, and there's, there's respect, and there's listening and deep attentiveness that to me is priceless. And I carry y'all with me, throughout the month, things that I've heard here, or phrases, or how I felt hearing you share whatever y'all have shared each month. That's of great value to me. And I do value, I do sense, and people have directly told me that there is value to them for this space to be as it is.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This was so much fun. I've been recording, so I kind of wanted to mention that earlier again, like, we're recording this. I hope it's okay, because we're being very forthright and honest about things here. So, yeah, message me later if you're having thoughts about that, so we can talk about that. But, yeah, and I'm way behind on putting these up on YouTube, which is my ultimate goal, so other people can see these, or if you need, to show some of this footage for something you're doing, and you're like, oh yeah, I read that poem at Recordando, and I can, scroll to the place so people can see. Well, you might have need for that video to be available for your own purposes. I had a good time, and this was not a time suck. And yeah, I have lots of things to look up now. And what was the name of that book you carried, Anita? Can you put that in the chat? The book that you carried with you that you didn't want to finish reading?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it right now.
1903.
Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah.
about it, in the author name, and I'll try not to read the end if I ever pick it up.
You know what? It's actually it's the second part. So there's a book called Beautiful Joe, and it's about this dog that was like this super majestic dog. And then the book that I have is the second part, which is Beautiful Joe's Paradise, which is when Joe dies and goes to animal heaven, which is like an absolutely beautiful idea for me, which is what I got stuck on, is like this heaven full of animals. But yeah, there's like these monkeys that do weird things, and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, no spoilers.
yeah, right.
No spoilers of what spoiled it.
Right. But I put it in there. I put it in the chat.
Okay,
So
got it.
Awesome.
Thank y'all so much. I had a great evening. Now I need to go check on the nephew and see if he's hungry again. Yeah, this was great, and see you in April, which is National Poetry Month. So if y'all have a suggestion for the theme for next month, feel free to help me out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good
Bye,
night.
everyone.
You have a great night. Stay warm, Patricia.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Good night.